when I was a young boy, I used to go down to my grandmother's house, and my grandmother and her home really were synonymous with love to me. It was all about love. And when I was down there, she made spaghetti and meatballs for me when I was a kid. And I had Nanny's spaghetti and meatballs when I was growing up. And so spaghetti and meatballs became associated with love for me. That reinforces my joy and my love of spaghetti now. Now, there's nothing wrong with that for me. Where it enters the realm of addiction and becomes shadow is when I'm sad, frustrated, angry, disconnected, and I find myself eating pasta to hide those feelings, to avoid those feelings, to fix those feelings, because I'm missing the reason why I'm sad or angry or disconnected or frustrated in the first place. My job is to try to understand what's going on for me now, rather than treat pasta as a drug, which is how I consider that. If I'm going to use it to bury my feelings or to avoid my feelings, that's an addictive structure. I'm very familiar with it. Where's it coming from? It's coming from a very powerful psychological story about how love and Nanny and my grandma and the warmth of that is connected to the food that I'm eating. Alyssa, I see you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my honor. So, it's so interesting. It really does work so beautifully with what you're already speaking of. So it's the idea of in the rooms of OA that I spent many years prior to my time finding Recovery 2.0, probably like 10 years ago. It's when you first started, is when I found your first conference that you offered. The free conference was when I found you. And I was in the rooms of the OA many years. And I always was seeking that other piece that Recovery 2.0 really fills in so beautifully. So anyway, one of the things that I always heard that really resonated with me was every compulsive bite blocks the light of God, spirit, or the universe. And I've intellectually, and I want to say every part of my being that resonates for it, lights me up. And yet to this day, I still struggle with those compulsive bites, and why I'm not able to allow myself to be fully in the presence of spirit and complete alignment. I still struggle with that. And it really does speak, I feel like, to the surrender, to being on this high diving board, to being able to take another step in the direction of, I guess, just again, a full surrender. And of course, they speak in the rooms about anything that's to do with food we have to live with, food we have to eat 3 times a day or twice a day or whatever works for our diet. But the idea of having to juggle that, finding the balance of just choosing healthfully, balancing the emotion around eating. It's its own interesting challenge. So I guess the inquiry is around just more of the same, the idea of blocking the light of God, the compulsive part, and allowing spirit to guide my every step would be, my challenge and my hope for my life.
Thank you, Alyssa, so much. What a powerful inquiry this is as well. My goodness. Okay. So much to say. I'm going to dive in a little bit and then come back and visit again, okay? One of the great challenges of dealing with early recovery in anything is that for a period of time, one is intently focused on the thing that you're trying not to do. The more you focus on something, right? We all know, the more present that thing is with you. So you might say that, for example, a person recovering from alcoholism might say, in their first week or 2 weeks or a month or whatever, few months of recovery, of sobriety, I think more about alcohol now than I ever have, they might say. because they're intently focused on not doing it. If that person stays in that state of mind, the very best thing they have in their future is white knuckling it through life. They're going to have to change their mind. Because if they continue to think about alcohol all the time, the great likelihood is they'll be uncomfortable. That will become an identity for them. They will define themselves by the thing that they're no longer supposed to do. Some of them will relapse into the behavior itself, and they'll drink again. And they will feel very badly about themselves because they've been trying so intently and so earnestly to not do this thing. And they have measured their success by the not doing of it. So the best thing we could hope for, if we're really focusing on something over time, is that we're just going to just, I'm thinking about this, but I know I can't do it. I can't do it. I shouldn't do it. I won't do it. Look what happened before. And so we live in fear of what it used to be like, of how we were when we engaged in this behavior. Now, as you said in your inquiry, when it comes to food, this is what I might refer to as a process addiction, in the sense of we're always in process with it. The alcoholic who's in true recovery, will recover. They will evolve. Their mind will change. They will no longer be focused on alcohol all the time. It will drop away from their consciousness. The charge about drinking will drop away. Many people speak in recovery about the obsession to drink and use was removed, simply gone. Meaning not only did they didn't have to fend off the thinking anymore. The thinking wasn't there. Like they had shifted their thinking in such a profound way. And often this comes by putting distance between a person and the behavior. So if the behavior is drinking and you don't drink long enough and you start to change your life and do what real recovery asks you to do, there's a great opportunity for you to actually change your mind, have the psychic healing that they talk about in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and set yourself free. Meaning you're no longer thinking about that. And I would say that you've now attained true abstinence. Maybe even the initial stages of recovery from alcoholism, in the sense that you no longer desire to drink. The work, I would say, begins there. Begins there. You got to get to that point where you no longer want to use the thing or drink or use the substance, where that's where the work begins. The spiritual work of becoming all that you can be and living the fullest life possible. Now, most people don't want to tell you that up front because that's a daunting concept. Because so many people first have to get to that point and really experience true abstinence in their life to get to the really juicy recovery part. But with food, as you astutely pointed out, and as we all know, you can't put distance between yourself and food. It's in your life. This is an idiosyncrasy of healing food addiction or compulsion. You use the word compulsion. So the directive remains the same, but within a different set of rules. The different set of rules is, well, I'm going to have to keep doing this substance, food. I need to nurture myself on a regular basis. And so I'm not going to be able to use abstinence as a method here. But I still have to change my mind. And so the real question is not how I can be perfect in my diet, not how I can stop eating what this, that, or the other thing, or eat in this particular pattern or this particular way. That is not the question. The question is not even necessarily about what you eat, not even necessarily about how much you eat. And that's a really unusual statement to make to somebody who's recovering from food compulsion and or addiction. It is about the mind. Period. The mind has to be brought to a new place. The suffering, the guilt, the compulsion itself has to stop. The thing that compels a person to eat in a way that is hurtful or unhelpful, or that in your language blocks the light of God, blocks spirit. That whole mechanism of compulsion needs to be dismantled. The mind needs to change. And there's a way that takes place. And that way is called the life path of yoga. If people do not embrace the life path of yoga, I don't know how this work is done. And what I mean by the life path of yoga is starting to pursue the path that leads you towards the truth, or continuing to pursue that path. Yoga is the place where everything connects. Addiction is the place where nothing connects. Moving from addiction or where nothing connects into union, that's yoga. So the mind has to change around food. It has to change. How can we do it? We can decide to operate in a different way. If we continue to focus more and more attention on food, we will remain in the problem. And the problem will grow. If we continue to focus on what we didn't do or what we did do that we shouldn't have, the problem will grow. So it's kind of like a mental aikido that's necessary. How can I be in relationship with food in such a way that doesn't keep me thinking about it? I will have to break out of this mental prison that keeps me in the thinking of food. Now, there are many programs out there that will have you weigh your food. And as a stepping stone, perhaps that's helpful for people. I know some people have been through those programs and they were able to lose weight for a period of time. But they hadn't yet achieved the changing of the mind in relation to this relationship with food. And until that happens, it's very difficult to recover. So one thinks, and I have a lot of experience around food addiction, more than anybody would think looking at my body. I know how I am in my mind. And I know what it is to be compulsive. And I know what it is to eat out of emotions. I know what it is to eat for sedation rather than energy. I know what it is to eat for excitement rather than energy. I know what it is to be out of alignment. And I know what it is to be in alignment. I know what it is to be hypervigilant. And I know what it is to be relaxed in my relationship with food. more so than anything, that's what I wish for anyone who struggles in this way. It's not rigid. It's not mean. There's a kindness and a softness to our approach. And there's a strategy. And the strategy has a lot to do with the body and moving this body. And it looks like starting to move respectfully, given the limitations of your body or anyone's body. And you were with us in England. And I got to see you be in a room of people practicing yoga, and you did exceedingly well. Exceedingly well. And so I know that you can move your body. And I remember hearing Dr. Nick Jensen, the beloved naturopath who administers to our community quite a bit. He talks about beginning to eat within a window, 12-hour window, 10-hour window, eat within an 8-hour window, whatever it is. And at the beginning, we start by eating in a 12-hour window. That means you're eating, let's say you start eating at 7 a.m. You finish eating at 7 a.m. You eventually go to bed. Say you go to bed at 9 o'clock. You've had an empty stomach. You have an empty stomach when you go to bed 2 hours later. And you have not eating until 7 the next morning. You have a 12-hour break. You've given your digestive tract a 12-hour break. So in this particular perspective, in a way, it's not necessarily what you eat, although it is also, but it's when you eat. That the when you eat is actually very important. And the terminology he used for when you finish eating at the end of the day was, he said, you close the kitchen. Now, there's something very clear and very bright about that. Close the kitchen. You've had a day of eating, you ate, you've nourished yourself, and you're closing the kitchen. And for the next 12 hours, you're not eating. And I've found it, even for people who have been very compulsive, and even for people who eat compulsively at night, because a lot of people do this and want to go to bed on a full stomach, which is a really bad idea for your health. But even those people have been able to adopt a 12-hour eating window and to begin to start to move into a way that's not, it's really gentle and kind of soft and kind. And then starting to learn certain things about hormones, in particular insulin, and what spikes insulin, and understanding the connection between appetite and insulin and the blood sugar roller coaster. And maybe you already know these things and have studied these things a little bit. Okay. But these things are critically important to the empowerment of the individual who wants to move beyond these patterns. There's no question that you can do it. The only question is what do we mean when we say it? If you say, well, I'm interested in losing weight, or I want to be in a different body than the one I find myself in, okay, we can work on that. And if in the losing of that weight, you're in exactly the same mind you're in, which is compulsive with regards to food, I would say, well, it's good that you're in the body that you now want to be in. It's going to be difficult for you to stay in that body, even more difficult for you to be at peace, because the mind hasn't changed. So the it that I'm talking about is a psychic change, complete and total, when it comes to relationship with food. Since you can't distance yourself from it for any serious length of time, you'll have to change the way you relate to it. And that wording is very important. So we do, for example, the food reset in Recovery 2.0. We try to do it once a year. And we go through a month-long process. And in that process, the strategy is simple. We're flooding the cells of the body with nutrition in incredibly respectful ways, letting go of things that are not helpful, But adding in these nutrient dense foods and eating in this 12-hour window and starting to get some regularity and consistency and starting to feel what that feels like. And we incrementally, very gently, very softly make incredible progress during that. So one of the keys in the strategies of this helping end compulsion around food is to make sure that the cells of your body are getting the nutrients that they need. Now, this is not necessarily relating to you. People who struggle in compulsive ways, and if you are heavy in your body, it's not really about heaviness, but it's more about the digestive tract and the way the digestive tract is operating. People who have struggle in their digestive tract often have struggle absorbing nutrients from their food, which compels them to eat more food. Because literally their body is not able to draw in the nutrition from the food that they're eating. So another part of the strategy, which may be necessary, you would need to work with a naturopath or a physician, or anyone would, is to determine the gut permeability. Do you have IBS, irritable bowel? Do you have nutrient uptake issues? And the only way that we know that is by doing a blood test and a stool test, and then having those tests read by somebody who's capable. Now, I do this once a year for myself. So I can see where I'm out of balance. I can supplement to bring myself into balance, make little mini shifts, and move on. The thing that I'm after is freedom. I want to be able to eat what I want to be able to eat when I want to be able to eat it. I want to feel good. I want to know it's right for my body. I don't want to be caught up in my head. I don't want to be thinking about food when I'm not hungry. When I finish a meal and step away from the table, I want to think to myself, what an incredible meal. I'm so grateful. And now what do I get to do with this newfound energy that I have? Let me go put it to work. And I know, and I say this, gosh, I just say it plainly. Everybody needs to exercise. Everybody needs to exercise every single day. These bodies were never meant to sit on our butts the way that we do. We need to get out and we need to move and create and build and exercise and sweat and breathe and do our yoga. And, if we're out in the woods or we're working on a farm, do our work, lift things and move things and bend and jump and run and do all the things human beings were meant to do. When we bring this kind of movement, regular movement every day, elevated cardiovascular exercise, right? When we do that, it changes the needs of our body. It changes the way we relate to food. So another part of the strategy is change your physical routine. Start to work. Start to do things you haven't done before. Create a new opportunity and a new possibility. And these things and many, many other things are guidelines towards the freedom that I know I seek in any situation. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm not looking to weigh my food, although I have no judgment about that for anybody else. I don't want to be thinking about things like that. That's me. I want to be setting myself free. And that's going to have a lot to do with lifestyle, movement, and of course, my food choices as well, and when I'm eating, and how much do I bring the sacred into my food choices also, and prayer and gratitude there as well. So these are some of the things that I'm thinking about. Compulsion, blocking the light of the spirit. Sometimes I'll have something in my diet that people might not consider healthy. An example might be pasta, spaghetti. I make really, really high quality pasta, high quality sauce, high quality Parmesan cheese. Brings great joy. I enjoy food. Love it. I'm a foodie. I enjoy it. That's the light side of it, is joy, enjoyment and love. When I eat that plate of pasta, I don't feel badly. That's the whole teaching right there. Do you understand? I don't feel badly. Sincerely. And I also don't feel triggered to have another bowl of pasta. And I know that some people do. And I know that many people are going to hear what I had to say just now and say, you don't understand the first thing about food addiction. And what I'm trying to do is to open up a gateway and a window to look at food addiction in a different way. And I'm investigating what it means to absolutely be free. Now, some people may not be able to eat pasta, and that's fine. Some people may be gluten intolerant. Some people maybe have celiac disease. Some people may be addicted. Some people may be eating conventional forms of wheat, which are literally poison, rather than organic forms of wheat, which are, for me at least, not poison. So I understand that some people can do it and some people can't. I'm just using it as an example for me. The thing that I'm interested in for you or me or anybody is freedom. How can we get there? And that's what I most hope for with regards to this issue in compulsion and relationship to food. In my freedom and my enjoyment of the pasta, the sunlight of the spirit is not blocked from my heart. Even if I eat something that I'm like, you know what, I shouldn't have done that, or I think I shouldn't do that again, even then, the sunlight of the spirit is not blocked from my heart. And so I wonder for you or anyone, what is actually blocking the sunlight of the spirit? Is it the food? The choice? An inner feeling that because you did this, you're bad, and so you're not in the light of the spirit? I don't know what that is, but that's another interesting inquiry that I'm curious about when we talk about this. So, Alyssa, what comes up for you here? I want to hear your feedback. I know you've been through a lot. I know you've studied a lot, and I know you've looked at this issue a lot.
First of all, thank you so much. That was so beautiful. I resonated with every word. And it's funny, my word is freedom too. I'm seeking freedom. So I
Yes.
love that you said that. And just to not have to, it's just to sit mindfully and with joy, eat the food, and then leave the table and not worry about it till the next time. Yeah. So I do have like this thing around worrying till the next time, but just in being freedom. That's the goal. You brought me, such emotion came up when I think about the movement, because I move, but I don't move in a way that's in ritual. And that's why really one of the reasons I went on this beautiful retreat that we just were on in England. It was such an extraordinary opportunity to practice being in movement on a daily basis in this way that just was gentle and just a great reminder to be in your body. And there's a way to do it gently. So that part I love, but I do need to kick it up a notch or 5. So there's that piece, but I appreciate you sort of, I'll say, calling me out on that in a gentle, loving way. I love the way you practice, by the way, and just the way you teach is just beautifully gentle and kind. And I know I need that. I just need a guide that's going to push me along, give me a good push off the diving board, but also be gentle and loving. Because
Yes.
I need to learn to do that more for myself. And that's really the whole thing. I mean, if we could probably have several sessions around this idea of the shame that comes up for me and the mind. It's such an important piece.
Yes.
Being positive mindset and all of that, but resonated deeply. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
There's one thing that's coming to my mind right now as I'm just hearing you share, and this also has to do with the psychology behind food choices that we make and patterns and the patterns that we have. So very quickly, when I was a young boy, I used to go down to my grandmother's house, and my grandmother and her home really were synonymous with love to me. It was all about love. And when I was down there, she made spaghetti and meatballs for me when I was a kid. And I had Nanny's spaghetti and meatballs when I was growing up. And I always was like, Nanny, make your spaghetti and meatballs. And so spaghetti and meatballs became associated with love for me. And so that's a very powerful story from my childhood that reinforces my joy and my love of spaghetti now. Now, there's nothing wrong with that for me. Where it enters the realm of addiction and becomes shadow is when I'm sad, frustrated, angry, disconnected, and I find myself eating pasta to hide those feelings, to avoid those feelings, to fix those feelings, because I'm missing the reason why I'm sad or angry or disconnected or frustrated in the first place. My job is to try to understand what's going on for me now, rather than treat pasta as a drug, which is how I consider that. If I'm going to use it to bury my feelings or to avoid my feelings, that's an addictive structure. I'm very familiar with it. Where's it coming from? It's coming from a very powerful psychological story about how love and Nanny and my grandma and the warmth of that is connected to the food that I'm eating. Just the same way that's a positive memory. Someone could have, forced food down my throat and made me eat things that I didn't want to eat. Or if I ate too much, people could have made fun of me, and I could have felt shame around that because my sense of self was not strong enough to say to somebody, mind your own business. I'm fine over here. Thank you. No. And so if I felt shame as a child around food, until that gets fully worked out, this is what I'm talking about when I say change our mind. I'm not shame-based around food. That I know. My mechanisms and the things that could pull me off center in my relationship with food are not based in shame. It's something else. And that's my job to sort of investigate that when I get off track a little bit. But again, the mind has to change. The stories have to change. The hooks of the past have to be unhooked. Because there's a reason why we would do something that we know is not good for us. And it's not because we're bad people, and it's not because we're weak people. I know you to be an intelligent, conscious, kind-hearted human being. I don't know you as somebody who doesn't have the wherewithal to make a good decision. You make good decisions all the time. So this is what I'm saying when each of us has to do our work of awakening to a deeper truth that's holding the answer to how we can change our mind away from patterns that no longer serve us.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, when food is love, I mean, it's definitely, it's around that idea of like seeking when I'm needing to, it's like an old pattern around needing to feel loved and
Yes.
cared for and all of that. And I know that's not a good, it's really not serving me well.
When I really, really do a strenuous yoga class, or I take a strenuous hike, or I go to the gym and I move some weight around, the loving thing for me to do is nourish me.
Right.
And I just practice that.
Beautiful.
Really love you, Alyssa, and I'm grateful for this inquiry.